Hello, I'm Brisa Espino, a student leader attending Belmont High School in the NJROTC program. Did you know each building in the district is assigned a positive school climate coach? This coach works with a school to implement and facilitate a sustainable, positive, safe environment for students to grow socially, emotionally, and academically. Fairview, Kemp, and Valerie received a state bronze award for their PSC strategies earlier this year. And now, this is in case you missed it. A leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. Quote by John C. Maxwell. Our very own Superintendent, Dr. Elizabeth Lawley, has earned the 2023 Ohio Superintendent of the Year Award from the Buckeye Association of School Administrators. This annual award is presented to only one superintendent in the state. Throughout her time as a superintendent, Dr. Lawley has worked diligently to improve the educational experience of all DPS students, which includes increasing the number of neighborhood school centers from 5 to 10, opening the district's first school-based health center at Roosevelt Elementary, increasing the number of career technical pathways from 13 to 24, and developing and implementing a double teaching model in all first through third grade classrooms. Dr. Lawley does not only fight for what is best for students in Dayton, but for what is best for all students in the state of Ohio. Congratulations, Dr. Lawley. You don't know you're making history when it's happening. Quote by Charity Adams Early. Charity Adams Early Girls Academy held a program to honor the legacy of its namesake. Students watched a short documentary, asked questions, and the children of Charity Early spoke about their mother and the values she instilled in them. A committee then presented a framed copy of Congressional Gold Medal legislation honoring Charity Early to the school. Wrapping things up, more than 60 JROTC cadets from Meadowdale and Belmont visited the 445th Airlift Wing at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base at the end of October. Students learned about military career opportunities and received hands-on experience with military systems and protective gear. Cadets also boarded one of the largest aircraft in the Air Force fleet, the C-17 Globemaster. That's it for this episode of In Case You Missed It. Catch us next time for more district highlights and follow us on social media to get the most up-to-date information and news 24/7. I'm Brisa Espino, and until next time, that wraps up this episode of In Case You Missed It. And remember, it takes courage to grow up and become who you really are. Quote by E.E. Cummings.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order this December 13th, 2022 review session. Madam Treasurer, may we have a roll call? Here.
Present.
Sampson,
Here.
Ms. Wigani,
Here.
Dr. Pickett,
Dr. Pickett has an excused absence.
Dr. Goodwin,
Dr. Goodwine also has an excused absence.
Mr. Lacey.
And Mr. Lacey will be joining us shortly.
Okay.
And we'll update once he arrives.
Okay, 4 present.
Thank you. May we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? All right. Dr. Lally, if you could you give us some introduction into our special presentations for today?
Yes, we had a request from a board member that we have an update on the study table success and the way that everything was moving forward. So we requested that 3 principals present tonight, 3 will present next week. And the principals and site coordinators are here, but please keep in mind that they have to get back to their buildings for the games that are scheduled tonight. And they all have games tonight. So I would ask for Dr. Sean Henry to come up as a representative from Dunbar and your team, Dr. Henry.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. With the protocol of mutual authority and deference being established and recognized, good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening.
I apologize if I sound muffled, but I'm going to leave my mask on because I don't feel well. I'm having some trouble breathing and speaking, so I'm going to take my time. I was not at work yesterday, and my temperature flirted with 100 all throughout the day. As a result of recent information received, I came to work today to collaborate and consult those who provided the information requested, and we assembled the final presentation. And I pushed through the day to be here with you tonight. Of note, I need to start by saying, when assuming the role of principal of Paul Laurence Dunbar High School at the end of 2018, Dunbar High School was in an athletic disciplinary enigma to be resolved with strategic sculpting. One of the first things I was able to do was assemble an in-house athletic council of Paul Laurence Dunbar High School constituencies. That was an integral part of our accountability and success. Since the OSHA sanctions were lifted from Dunbar and the district, the Athletic Council of Dunbar High School constituencies was uninvited to the table of decision-making regarding Dunbar athletics. In addition, the Dunbar principals' input, interaction, and decision-making with Dunbar athletics has been progressively limited over time. As a result, I'm thankful to Coach Dorsey, our site coordinator, for his communications regarding athletics, and our team empowered Coach Dorsey to keep Dunbar compliant with district expectations. And since I am unable to answer some of the questions about some of the requested information Coach Dorsey is here to assist me with tonight's presentation. I'm thankful for the slides being shown. We have wonderful Dunbar faculty members who serve at our study tables, and please, we have one omission. With the girls' basketball team, they also serve with Miss Willis. We think it's important for us to raise that the success of our study tables is a collective effort, and our faculty members, after serving a long day at work, spend extra time to connect with our students. So the individuals that you see on the first slide are to be tremendously thanked. The next slide, please. We just want to get right to the snapshot of the quantitative data. There's qualitative data as well. But first, the quantitative data. You see in front of you the number of student athletes accordingly to each team. We have a total of 121 student athletes that work hard daily to meet our expectations. We're not perfect, but we are going in the right direction thanks to a collective effort of efficiency. The next slide, please.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir, Mr. Sampson.
if I may, Dr. Henry.
Yes, sir.
With respect to you. Well, Mr. President, I would like to ask that if Dunbar has to present today, that someone stands in the principal's stead. It's obvious he's having a difficult time breathing. He's uncomfortable. And if it's not something that can be done today, can we table Dunbar's presentation to next week? I would like to see Dr. Henry be excused, go home, take care of himself, versus sitting up here struggling, trying to give a presentation. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Sampson, and I also agree with that. Dr. Henry, is Mr. Dorsey able to go through the slides that we have, Mr. Dorsey?
I don't believe he can, but that's to your choosing. He's here to substantiate information that I cannot. I don't feel comfortable putting the whole presentation on him since I am the building principal, sir.
Okay, then could we can do next week, it would just be 4 schools, and that'll be fine. That would be fine, Mr. Henry. I definitely would rather you try to take care of yourself than go through the presentation.
Thank you. So does that mean I can be excused from tonight's game as well?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
I was going to say that after you stopped talking.
I appreciate it.
You need to go home.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Mr.
you, Dr.
President.
Henry.
brother.
Thank you, Mr. Sampson. Dr. Lally?
The next school to present is Meadowdale Career Technology Center. So, Mr. Rissmiller, will you bring your team forward?
All right, good evening, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to present what is happening with Meadowdale, our study table program. I am being joined by our site coordinator, Mr. Terry Matthews, and also wrestling coach, Noah Zapanzik. Our program for our study tables is led by 2 individuals. The second individual just recently joined us. Ms. Danette Carpenter was our second join, and Ms. Corey Mackey has been with the program since the inception for the school year. Doing the non-athletes would be ETS representative, Ms. Lisa Hubbard, and we also have Linda Topton-Hill from Central State Central State joining us to support on Mondays as well. I'm going to turn over to Mr. Matthews Mr. Zapanzik to share our enrollment.
As you can see, the numbers, we don't have nearly as many kids as Dunbar participating in sports, but I think the kids that we do have participating are striving to get better grades than they did when they were not participating in sports, so on and so forth. Last year, for wrestling itself, I know my kids are doing much, much better. As for other sports, I cannot necessarily speak, but my 10, I only have one kid that has to attend study tables on a regular basis, and he does do so.
Awesome, appreciate it. Once again, I'm Terry Matthews, site coordinator for Meadowdale. As he stated, we just got a new person to help with the study table, which helps out a lot better because we've only been operating under one person managing our study table, which sometimes averages 30 to 40 students at one time, so it was a little difficult. But now that we have a second person, I'm kind of already seeing the improvement in it already. As a site coordinator, I get there and just try to make sure everyone gets there because a lot of times people kind of linger off. So that helps out as well, just getting there by 3:15, making sure that the students go. And they've been doing a great job from the improvement from fall sports to winter. I've seen the improvement from with the basketball team, and I think the coaches have owned in on the aspect of what we're doing, which helps out a lot because it kind of gives a full circle of what we're trying to do, and there's no missing pieces. We can actually go to the next slide if you would like, and we're going to talk about the attendance. What I am noticing is that there's a lot more attendance of people coming for the basketball team and the cheerleaders. The main reason I can say that is because they're actually staying after school and not leaving the building at all, which increases the numbers of attendance for study table. Where at first, because of the different sports in the fall time, we had some students trying to go grab something to eat, different things of that nature. The students that I have noticed that were going to study table that have gotten out of the position where they don't have to go anymore because of their grades getting better is a plus because that means they're actually getting the work done in class, not having to come to study hall. But the requirement for the varsity basketball team is that every student must go. There is no leaving the building. It doesn't matter what your grades are, you are required to go to study hall, even if that means helping out your next team player with their homework or whatever they need help with. So I'm seeing that improvement as well. As last I would like to add is that what I'm seeing with the study table as well is that there are a lot of students complaining about food and having snacks and being hungry. And I know they're working on some things to make sure the students can get fed because that is a decent time before the varsity basketball team doesn't even practice till 6 o'clock. So these students are getting out at 3:15 and having to sit around and wait till 6 o'clock for practice. They only use the weight room, which we'll get to that slide. They only use it twice a week. So that does kind of occupy time where they're not thinking about food. But on those other days, those students are most definitely complaining about having snacks. And I typically bring some things for those guys like chips, something small like that for them, just to kind of keep them geared and ready for practice when it comes. The study table, I will say, is a plus, something that we didn't have back when I played sports for Dayton Public Schools. I think it's very important because we want our students to be student athletes, not just athletes. So I think it's a great thing. Meadowdale is doing a great job along with the principal. He comes out in the hall and makes sure people get into study hall as well. Once again, I think as a whole, we're doing everything we can to make sure that we're keeping up the standards of what Dayton Public Schools should be.
If you can advance 2 slides. So what you see here is a study table attendance by team, and as you can see that boys basketball has a significant group, that group that's staying afterwards. Most of those are our Meadowdale students. There's not many of our DECA students that are coming in during that time. If our DECA students was included in that, that would probably add another 5 to 7 students that would be showing up on a regular basis for that support. Cheerleading, again, those that fall below that 2 point, they are coming in and working there as well. Indoor track and wrestling start a little bit quicker in their practices, but they do offer supports for those that definitely need that support as well. If we can advance to the next slide. So some of the things that we've been doing to help support our cause and work through things, we do the text alerts and one calls through our Parent Square program. From our building, weeks 3 through 8, we do a weekly alert to our families to let them know if they're at risk on any of their classes. That goes out as a text alert and a one call. What we look for that report is any student that has a 59.99 or below, and then a text alert comes out according to that report in regards to how many Fs they actually have, to at least inform the families. We advertise weekly in our regular update that we do have the study tables going on, both the one sponsored by ETS, what's sponsored by Central State, and our study tables for our athletics. We do announcements through our day. We also do ensuring check-ins with our coaches and the coordinators, as Mr. Matthews has shared. We do student check-ins, and then we also visit with the study tables. If you can go to the next slide, please. So I started going into some of this. So we do have updates throughout. One of the updates that we do is a semester update. That goes out twice a year, once for the first semester, once for the second semester. The first semester update shares credits earned, credits that they still need, where the student actually stands on SEALs, and recommendations for what they should do to help get support. We also stick a flyer in for ETS in that mailing to go home, and that does go as a mailing to the families. It also shares their state test. If you look there, we also have a quarter update. So once the quarter ends, we do a letter, we do a text alert to let families know where they stand and that their ability and performance on that quarter does have an implication on whether or not the students actually earn credit at semester time. We do, again, the interim, and then if you go to the next page, we do the weekly updates as well. There's a list there for student referrals. At the end of this presentation, you'll have access to a hyperlink that has the students' GPA, their attendance, and their number of referrals, or as far as days of discipline that they've had. As far as teacher needs and progress monitoring, we review this regularly in TBT, probably at least 2 to 3 times a quarter. Talk about grades, what does this look like? We pull that F report that I send home to families to discuss, like, why are these students failing? Is anybody communicating with each other on why the student's failing? If a student's failing 3 or 4 classes, what are we doing to actually promote better grades, better studying, better habits, or do we need to look at another plan for that student? BLT takes a more in-depth look, and we're trying to identify professional development needs if that's something that's needed for our building to help support practices for instruction. We do review our RTI. That was something that we reviewed during our Thanksgiving PD Day. And if you go to the next slide, do you want to talk about the weight room a little bit more since you started on that?
Yeah. Since we got our weight room redone, last year was a little dicey, not the nicest in the world, and the equipment wasn't very good, but right before football season started, we got a new weight room, and more people are way up to using it because it's cleaner, it's quite frankly safer. The one we had in there was, lack of a better term, was not kind of a death trap, quite frankly. But now that it's updated, I see people being able to use it more effectively, and I'm in there twice a week, and it looks like all major sports is in there at least twice a week. So I know girls basketball also is in there Tuesdays and Thursdays like we are too. They come in after us. So all the sports during wintertime are using the weight room, my bad.
All right, if you advance to the next slide, please. So we did reflect on what's gone with our current practices. So right now, unfortunately, we feel like we're operating in islands. We do probably need to create a little bit more collaboration between our ETS partnership and our athletic study tables. The big advantage of that would be to reduce those student to teacher, student to support ratio, which will really help that out. For the longest time, we only had one coordinator. So we started with this week, had a second one start on December 8th, and we need to find a third one again to reduce that student to adult ratio. Something else that's really hurt us is we've only had one counselor for the duration of the year. We have 2 counselor openings in the building. That's somebody else that would actively help communicate with students, letting them know, like, where's your progress, that regular check-in. It's definitely a check-in that we're missing at this current point in time. We've been working with our community partners. We have community in schools that's been able to work with the Air Force. They've been able to bring in some study and tutor help with the ETS side of it, and we're trying to work with another branch to, again, try to bring more study support to help with those GPA requirements. One thing that we need to do is provide a better opportunity for those that are 2 and above. What can we do as far as improving ACT, state test scores? Maybe it's the seniors and working towards doing scholarships or applications or whatever that they might need to better prepare for their next needs post-secondary wise. Last year, we built access for our coordinators in TAC so that they had like an 8th period so they could see all their students and access their grades at any time. So that's something that we need to do this year. So again, they can click in TAC, access those students and figure out what they might need. Because most of our students, unfortunately, they may say, oh, I don't know, I didn't give anything today. And unfortunately, we know that there might be some other truth to that on some of our students. One more slide, please. As far as our athletic weight room, we need to see our phys ed department actually get in there a little bit more. Being a part of some other districts before here, we actually had some different programming that was taught by the phys ed program. We had a weight wellness program up at Graham where they learned about proper lifting, how to, what does it look like for them to go to the gym and how to actually use that equipment properly. How do they, maybe do some kind of healthy living aspect with that. We also need to find a way to extend to out-of-season sports. That's something I know that was brought up in Athletic Advisory Council. Other districts I've been a part of, they have a non-season coach, if you will, that somebody that is allowed to have contact with the students because we know that football coaches can only have contact during certain parts of the year. So it might be a spring season coach that gets in there, serves as a weight room supervisor, just at least to provide that opportunity to work through that. And I think our last slide's next, if there's any questions. Oh, sorry, there's our extension for our current performance. And then the next slide's questions. Any questions?
First of all, I want to say thank you all. Appreciate the information, and I definitely look forward to even looking at some of those GPAs and how they're moving and looking at that. Like you said, some of those students who weren't in athletics and how, those things change with athletics. Before I go, I definitely wanted to open it up to the board. If anybody had any questions. Mr. Sampson, and then Ms. Witt-Gagne.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, thank you for the presentation. I do have a couple questions. The first question is study tables mandatory for all athletes, or is it based on their academic performance?
We've went academic performance. We do see benefits in making it a mandated thing for all of our students, as there are some opportunities for them once we especially get the staffing to help support that.
Okay. And having the opportunity right now just to take a quick glance just at basketball. So there's about 20 scholars between girls and boys basketball that have less than a 2.0. What are we doing for that group of individuals specifically to help them academically perform, getting their grades up? What are we doing? Is there any intentionality with those students that have less than a 2.0?
There's been individual meetings with those students,
Okay.
Not just by myself, but the assistant principals in the building, also the other counselor that we do have. We also have coaches that are also following up on that weekly or biweekly report to really try to address those because, they're addressing for a reason. So, the coaches know that they need to be eligible in order to be able to participate and perform. So there is a lot of intentional conversations. We do extend those conversations to families by phone when we can get a hold of them. So there is context throughout that process.
Okay. One more question, if I may, Mr. President.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Lally, I think this question is for you. Is there anything that we can do to partner with nutrition services to be able to provide snacks for those students who are staying in school for 3 hours until practice starts?
Yes, I'm sure there is. We already do a vegetable fruit kind of thing with our elementaries, so I'm sure that we can. I'll work with Dr. Lawrence and Mr. Furr and get something started.
Thank you so much.
I know we provide breakfast to the morning study table people who come in to different buildings. So I'm sure we can do something about the mid-range afternoon snack.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Ms. McGagne.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Wonderful information. I look forward to, I know this is our first year rolling this kind of concept out in a way. I think it could have potential, really good impact, and that's going to take time. My questions were related around the food service piece, which I thought about using, you know, our services that we already have in place. But I wonder also, do you have parent organizations within your high school and within like the basketball teams? I know like oftentimes there are parents that want to bring in and feed kids and that sort of thing. So if there could be a little more outreach intentionality in that regard. I know oftentimes in schools, there's one Thursday night a week where in the basketball team, the parents bring in food and they have a schedule, that sort of thing. And some of that work I don't know if Angela Worley has worked in your school with some of those parent touching points and that sort of thing. I think that would be wonderful. And then also using our concessions more, which also would be our food services is a possibility. Those are all ideas I wanted to throw out there. You mentioned the overall attendance is increasing. You're seeing more and more kids wanting to stay. I think anytime when we have experiences in a school where we have study tables and kids are starting to benefit from it and you have food there and it becomes a school experience, it certainly builds on community, which is a big part of what our school should be about. So anything we can do to continue to build that. I wonder on the coordinator pieces of it, I don't know how our recruitment strategy is rolling out on that sort of thing because it's basically a part-time job or some sort of supplemental thing. And I know there are many probably retired people in the community that would love to come into a study table a couple hours a day and work with, you know, these young, exciting kids and that sort of thing. So I just wondered if how our recruitment strategy, and this would probably be something for chief, or I don't know how these positions are being filled, but I certainly think that we could, it would be a fun job for the right people. So, okay, that's all I have. Thank you. I appreciate you all. So.
Thank you. So for me, let me start. So when we talk about our non-athletes that are in study tables, what does that usually look like?
As far as our ETS program, they typically meet on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Central State meets for an hour on Mondays.
Okay, and then also, is there any space for, so in this situation, athletes that would do track or boys volleyball in the spring or baseball in the spring, do they have space to be able to come in as well right now?
So ETS has that option, allowed them to come in for that.
That would be good, that's good. Then also, and I'm wondering how we could do that. Maybe it's something we could put out, Dr. Lally. I know with our HAC, our Home Access Center, I know one of the things that you can do on there is to kind of set it up where to get alerts, and you can kind of have it customizable. So, you know, for, say, if a parent says, hey, my kid was at a 2.5, I want to make sure that they don't go below this percentage in any of their grade. I think maybe even if we could do something to send out to say, hey, parents, if you get on here, this is something else you can do. Because I know a lot of parents go on HAC and they you know, see the current grade, but they don't notice those things that they could do on there. I think that would be really good to kind of put out, just say, hey, because we get a lot of people that we're in that weird eligibility piece in winter where, you know, in fall you have it's from fourth quarter, then you have at the end of the quarter. Right. Now you're at that piece where somebody's eligible now, second quarter comes out, they could be ineligible. So I think that could be something on our end as a collaborative piece. I do think just us kind of finding those pieces for you all is a big piece. That was one of the conversations we also had in the Athletic Advisory Council is that, you know, for those students that are above this 2.0, what do we do about getting them test advisory or, you know, making sure that they have clearinghouse things for our kids who are trying to go on to the next level and play things like that. So I think if we can look and put our heads together, I think there's some things that we could look at there. Also, so outside of, is boys basketball the only sport that the coach kind of has the mandate that all students go to the study table? Okay. And then with that, has there been any issues as far as with other students being in there kind of disrupting the learning opportunities for the students that are there because they are under a 2.0?
Not currently. I haven't seen too much of the disruption piece.
Not lately, no. In the beginning, yes. Because I think that was something that was brand new for all of them, where it was mandated that they had to go. So when they first started basketball practice and they were mandated to go, you kind of seen where some pushback of don't want to be here because I don't have to be here. And it was a little chaotic for the students who had to be there because they were on Chromebooks or doing a certain assignment or something of that nature. Lately, within the last couple of weeks, it has gotten a lot better. And I think it's going to get even better now that we have a second coordinator in there to kind of help out. What I've seen them start to do is separate because they use the cafeteria, which is very large. So they kind of separate on different sides of the cafeteria, meaning males and females, because the cheerleaders don't start practice until, I want to say 4:30. They start getting dressed about 4:15. So they are in there at the same time with those boys. So they try to keep them separate, mainly because you know, boyfriend, girlfriends, and how that thing go. And it could be a little distraction. So they did separate them, especially since we have two now. It's a lot easier. But I have seen the increase, and I have seen more people in there with the intention of studying. And then the ones that really are not studying, they are quiet. I mean, they'll have headphones on or something of that nature off to the side, which doesn't bother anyone at all. Those students are the ones, grades are a little higher, so we're not really hard on them of get off your phone, you need to get in your books, because they do have the grades. And you have some that are role models that are helping the other students, which is great as well.
Okay, and then to follow up with that, how's it been in the building as far as students that need help or need some assistance through study tables? How's that connection been? You know, has there been any way that teachers have been sending assignments or kind of connecting with the coach or you as the site coordinator to say, hey, you know, this student is really needing some focus here, or this is some assignments that they're behind on? Has there been any collaboration in that vein?
On my end, small, mainly because I'm not in the building at Meadowdale during the day. And if I was, I think it would be more communication. A lot of the teachers don't even know who I am because I've never seen them before. I've only had 2 teachers reach out to me as far as students with grades and assignments. That's only because I've been able to meet them. They've seen the face with the name. So I have received emails from those teachers, but I can't really speak on what's going on more in the building. One of you guys will have to speak on that.
So what we also notice is when I do the weekend reports on progress on how many Fs those students may have, there is I don't want to say a panic, but there is a little bit of distress when those students come into their Monday morning or Monday afternoon classes and they're asking those teachers, what am I missing? So that phone call is reaching, I would say probably at least 75% of our students, and there is that initial onset of like, oh my gosh, I do have stuff to work on. We do have probably about 15% right now that we don't have good phone numbers or good email addresses and need to find a way to really reach out to those families. And unfortunately, snail mail just takes a little bit too long to reach some of them. So we do, with our student success coach that we have, I know that he, for our building, is reaching out to some of those families and those students on how do they get in contact with them to see if we can help eliminate some of those contact gaps.
Appreciate it. And then lastly, I know I really, really, really agree with physical education use and then just general students being able to kind of get involved with that. If there's anything we can do to help some of those things, help community kind of pieces with those. And I do want to say that's something that in our council, and I know Dr. Lawley has also brought up about finding some people to do some of that weight training and things like that. So there's some things that we're working on, especially with the Athletic Advisory Council, to kind of address those needs. So I'm glad you brought them up because, you know, we don't want to talk about things that are not concerns as well at the building level. And then, so on, I saw that there's is there anything going on in the weight rooms on those Fridays?
As of right now, no.
Okay.
I mean, unless
This is just building off of like bringing school into the athletic realm. At Meadowdale, we have an exercise science as one of our pathways, and I have a senior, and to get hours, he's actually building a weightlifting program for my wrestling team.
Awesome.
So I think if we could implement that with every single sport, I think that'd be a really benefit for everything too.
That'd be amazing, especially using our students to do those things. Really appreciate that kind of thought. There's no other questions? Yes, ma'am, Ms. Vice President.
Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate this presentation. And I appreciate these numbers that I'm looking at, flipping through girls basketball, boys basketball, cheerleading, indoor track, wrestling. My question is, so what we really want to track is the efficacy of this program at the study tables. Are we reaching the students and giving them the supports that they need in order to bring their grades up? So I appreciate the numbers that are here. I would like to see some more numbers. So these are the winter sports, is that correct? So we have the Q1 GPA, and we've already passed the interim. I know because I had to sign some of my kids' forms the other day. And we're not quite to the end of Q2, but I would love to see some more information in terms of the fall sports and what the GPA was. You have a lot more information, obviously, because you could see the kids' grades week by week. I would love to see how the efficacy of the study table program went for the fall sports, as well as where the winter sports kids are right now, too, just to make sure that we're meeting the needs of these kids and that we're able to reach them and support them so that they can continue their academic journey as well as their athletic journey.
And I would
Thank
like
you.
to reiterate that, trying to figure out a way for us to reduce our student to adult ratio is
Right.
hopefully going to be something that really helps that out as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mr. Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. President. One thing that I heard you say about the student-teacher ratio, I think that's huge. And I also heard you talk about community collaboration. I do know, if I recall correctly, Faith Deliverance, Maranatha are two community partners. Have we been able to reach out to them to say, hey, this is a need we have, how can you help serve, and what does that look like?
We've started those conversations. We just need to lock that down a little bit, probably give them some better times.
Got it.
It was hard at the beginning just because we only had one site coordinator in the building. So now that we have a little bit more consistency, then hopefully we can get some more of those adults from the community in.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. And I definitely think that once you, like you said, once you get up to those numbers that we're looking to have in there, I think it'll definitely take off, and I think it'll help with some of those other pieces that you're looking to do. So appreciate you, and I look forward to seeing the continued growth of the program. I just appreciate you guys really diving into this and really, taking something new and going and working with it for the best of our students. So appreciate you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Good luck tonight.
Thank you. We're on our way now.
May I also add that we do serve snacks, but they're like chips and things like that. So I'm thinking that what we're asking for is something more with some protein, even some protein bars or things like that. Is that kind of the consensus?
Yeah, and
Something besides chips and,
I think there's something we can look at with some of the different things that we have in community partners and groups that are out there. I think there's something we can do.
okay, we'll talk about that. Thank you. Yeah, some fruit and vegetables, things like that too, yeah. That's what I thought too, with some protein.
I think so. Next, Dr. Lawley.
Next, I'd like to introduce Principal Karen Cicchetti from Belmont High School, and she can introduce her team.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
So my athletic team is not here tonight because they are at our game. Our site coordinator is Kevin Dudley, and our associate director is Aaron Mullins, who also meet with us and help us. But what I have here tonight is our study tables and academic enrichment program team with me. I have Miss Janine Early, who leads our study tables, does a magnificent job, and I have Miss Shola, I'm going to get this right, Otamade, and Miss Craft, who are both ETS. So good evening, and thank you for inviting us. All right. Tonight, I'm going to go through our PowerPoint. If we look at our winter sports enrollment, we had 125. Can you go ahead and go to the next slide? And for our fall sports, we had 126, so we did lose one student. Go ahead and go to the next slide. I want to do some fall sports highlights of what's going on, and then I'm going to get into the GPA and break down that for you, because I know you mentioned that earlier. Some highlights from our fall sports is we added a soccer program for our girls this year. Our soccer coach, Mr. Hill, won City League. He was City League Coach of the Year, which we're excited about. I'm not going to go through all of them, but we had some really great highlights this year from the fall sports. And we were really happy that we added the girls' soccer. If we go to the next, down at the bottom to the winter sports highlights, I really want to talk about, we added a swimming program this year and a girls' wrestling program. We don't have a lot right now, but we have 3 swimmers and we have 4 girl wrestlers right now. So we're pretty excited about adding that. We increased our numbers for our wrestling program for our boys, and we've increased our numbers after COVID for our indoor track team again. Before COVID had hit, our numbers were really high, but now we're getting back to where our numbers used to be. So we also, this past week, started our new AM study table program with our new study table coordinator. So our doors open at 6:30 in the morning, and so far we've had a couple people come each day. So we're hoping to grow that, but continuing offering breakfast and getting in the door before everyone else and not having to stand in those long lines due to the fact, you know, our enrollment's 1,200 kids and they have to stand in those long lines. So the kids that were there, I spoke to them this morning, they were really happy that they didn't have to stand in the line and they got to have breakfast for everybody. So that was a positive. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So when we do the GPA comparison from the fall sports to the winter sports, we had a 2.0 or increase in the number, our percentage of students with a 2.0 increased going into our winter sports. So we were happy about that. And our number of students below a 1.5 decreased. Out of looking at the fall and the winter sports, we had 54 athletes on both teams because I wanted to know how many athletes did the fall and how many did the winter. 67% of those, their GPA went up. The other 30% stayed about the same, and then we did have like 2% go down. And we did look at and do a breakdown of that. Go ahead and go to the next slide. If you click on, Sharice, if you click on the fall data, I'm not going to go into everything, but we did do a breakdown for you for fourth quarter. And for first quarter, you can see if they went up or down. We did that for every sport going across. We also did attendance and if they were suspended at all for every sport for fall. And if you click to the next, if you go back, click the winter data. And we did the same thing for the winter data. We just have quarter 1, and then when quarter 2 ends, we will add that data. And we'll share this PowerPoint with you, and then you can see the comparison also yourselves. And with this for every sport. I'd like to have Ms. Early come up and share the how she runs the study tables program in collaboration with our ETS at this time.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ms. Early. This is my 3rd year as study coordinator for Belmont High School, and this year we've done something different. I really appreciate the district having hired other people. So I run study tables at the high school with 3 other people, Ms. Ammons and Ms. Murphy. Middle school also has 2 different study coordinators, and that really does help with us breaking down how to service children. When you click on 22 study tables data, what we did this year, and I like collaborating with Ms. Giacchetti, the admin, and ETS, we broke it down by sports with our basketball teams. Basketball, cheerleading, for winter sports, basketball, cheerleading, wrestling, indoor track, and girls basketball. We track their data of their attendance. When you see the open spaces, that means a student was there. The only time we put anything in these spaces is if they're absent for a study table, and that could be for any type of reason, absent from school, early dismissal, or suspension. You can go back, please. Next slide, please. Here's our breakdown of our study tables attendance for every week. All of our students, as you know, through athletics, we have a sign-in sheet that athletics has provided us, which I really think the district needed to have instead of us coming up with our own study tables. And it's broken down by athletes and non-athletes. So for like the week of October 24th, from that Monday, that Tuesday, that Wednesday, that Thursday, because study tables are open 4 days a week. And at Belmont, all students are mandated to come to study table, meaning that Mrs. Giacchetti asked that all student athletes and anyone else that needs support in the building with their academics attend study tables. I do like that we are doing something different by adding a morning study table because a lot of kids work for whatever reasons, to support themselves and their families. So it does help having study tables open in the morning now. This is a breakdown of the numbers that we have for the different weeks. October 24th, we had 53 athletes, 10 non-athletes. And as you see, the numbers go up and down because of participation in sports. Some of that's broken down, like if you see Tuesday, we had 73 athletes because we were going through trials and tribulations of who's going to make the basketball, cheerleading, winter sports programs. Next slide, please. Still tracking data, we did the same thing for every week. And as you see, sometimes our numbers fluctuate. What frustrated me one day, and I went to Ms. Giacchetti in collaboration with her and ETS, why are my numbers low on a Monday? And Ms. Giacchetti said, Ms. Early, remember, track your data and make sure that you see some kids are absent. So let's pull their kids. Well, this kid is signed up for basketball. She does something on her laptop, they're absent from school, Ms. Early. Oh, okay, because I panic when kids are not there, and I want to know why. And so we try to reach out with Ms. Ammons to make phone calls, as well as myself, to find out why is attendance low on different days. Next sheet, please. Our study table attendance average by teams, as you see, is broken down weekly with participation of every sport that we have. And the numbers I do like right now, the numbers have increased at Belmont High School. We have a lot more students, winter sports, that are participating in sports. Our next slide. And I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Giacchetti.
No, ETS.
Oh, I'm sorry. In collaboration with ETS, I want to introduce Ms. Shola and Ms. Zitgraf, and they're going to talk about the programs that they offer for us. They are absolutely outstanding. Belmont is one of the few schools when they first started out that we had ETS. It has taken off, and it is an excellent program that we support.
So, good evening. My name is Shola Odumare. I'm the project director for the Sinclair Educational Talent Search Program. And I have Hannah Zitgraf here. She's our program coordinator advisor for Belmont. If it's okay with you, I'd like to distribute just a quick little overview because I don't think everyone is aware of what ETS is. You heard Mr. Rissmiller reference it quite a number of times. Perhaps Dr. Henry would have as well. So just a super fast overview of what ETS is, Educational Talent Search. We're a federally funded program from the Department of Education. There are close to 500 talent search grants in the United States. So this is a national program that DPS is privileged to have here in-house in 6 buildings. So we serve students in Belmont, Dunbar, Meadowdale, Wagaman, E.J. Brown, and Wright Brothers. 1,000 students, grades 7 through 12. The majority of students are prospective first-generation college students who meet income guidelines. And so we have been around since 2011. We bring close to $500,000 in annual funding to the district for programming and services that are really able to enhance the 1,000 students that we serve across those 6 buildings. So our whole purpose is to impact persistence, high school graduation, post-secondary education, enrollment, and then attainment of a degree or certificate. At Belmont, we work in a super, super collaborative way. In all of our buildings we do, but particularly for the after-school initiative, the study tables, the academic enrichment, we've worked very collaboratively with Ms. Giacchetti and her team, Ms. Early, to make this resource available to all students and particular focus on the student athletes. So now I want to talk to you about our academic enrichment hour. So it's our version of study tables, but it's tutoring, and there are also special workshops that we do during that time. So it's an academic enrichment hour, not just the study tables. And it's open to all Belmont students. We serve about 400 students at Belmont, and this is an option for the student athletes. So I know for like Coach Early, for example, has always been sending her cheerleaders to our after-school enrichment, even before the study tables mandate kind of formally got started with the district several years ago. And so we have many of our student athletes who do participate in our program and who participate in our after-school enrichment hour. So these are like smaller groups. It's a little bit more intensive assistance and intervention. We average about 40 to 50 students who actually take advantage of the service every week. And we are working always to recruit more students and encourage more students to attend and drive traffic there. We do, so that 40 to 50 includes non-athletes and athletes. We have 5 tutors, 5 instructors that we hire for the core content areas and for credit recovery. The credit recovery initiative is new this year, and we really worked with Ms. Cicchetti and the team to hire on the credit recovery teacher who works at Belmont during the day, hire him as a part-time instructor for ETS with Sinclair after school, and so he has access to the modules to be able to open up for students who can come after school to engage in their credit recovery efforts to really complete those modules with that extra time after school. We do provide students with bus passes if needed for the students who are going home and not staying for their sports practices. So what this looks like is Tuesday through Thursday, we have the tutoring. And so we have the student athletes, and all students will come to the media center. They'll sign in with Mrs. Early. They'll sign in with us. And then we have the students go into the classrooms with these 5 instructors, depending on the content area that they want to focus on. So we have social studies, science, ELA, the credit recovery, and mathematics as well. And so the students can get help with assignments, so there's intensive tutoring happening. Also for students who just want a quiet environment to do their homework, maybe they don't have questions or they don't need assistance, they're in that environment as well. The credit recovery I already spoke on, helping students calculate their GPAs, helping them look into their hacks, and then college and test prep that we do as well. Next slide, please. So on Monday, so that was Tuesday through Thursday, but on Monday we do what are called grade checks, and all of the students come. Our staff members are available in the media center, and we are encouraging them and assisting them with logging on to their hacks, because part of what we want to do is really equip and empower students to be self-monitors and self-advocates. So we're helping them look into their hacks, and then if there are students with D's or F's, low grades, we're actually helping them to communicate with their teachers about missing assignments, and then Hannah will actually go and communicate with the teachers and coaches herself directly, either via email or directly in person, to say, hey, we have this list of students, they're falling below, they've come to study tables or to academic enrichment. What can we do to really assist these students in with boosting those grades? We also do special workshops. So here's where the academic enrichment piece comes in. So what we've done so far, we did an Algebra 1 OST prep that we offered during that academic enrichment hour time. We did a scholarship essay writing workshop, because Hannah's actually a former English teacher, and we snatched her, for our program. And so she was able to facilitate a scholarship essay writing workshop for our 11th and 12th graders to really prepare them in that college application process and scholarship process. And then beyond just academic enrichment, is just a small snippet of what we do. We're embedded in the buildings, and we offer college prep. We do college visits, tours for students, help them with FAFSA completion, all of our cultural experiences, field trips. We're taking students to see a Charlie Brown Christmas on Friday, for example, and then just extended academic support that we do through the program. And our coaches and athletes, Ms. Cicchetti, all of the administrators really do encourage students to participate in the ETS program, and it's a really excellent collaboration that we've been able to develop. So I'll answer questions later when we open for questions. Thank you.
All right, so to recap, our study tables are mandatory for all in-season athletes. It is from 3:15 to 4:15, Monday through Thursday. We collaborate with ETS. Students, again, like she said, come into the study tables in the media center. They're broken up. If they want to go get the extra support and assistance, they can, or they can go with their coaches also and sit in a classroom with their coaches and get the extra support. We also added Ms. Ammons, who is an ELA teacher, to stay in the media center if a student wants to stay in the media center and assist them in the media center. Go ahead. Efforts to recruit. We do, at the beginning of the year, I met with Erin Mullins and the athletic team, and I said we need to have an athletic meeting with all coaches and all students. Because at first we started out with, if you had a 3.0, you didn't have to come to study tables. Well, some of our students who weren't doing well were running down to the gym wanting to play and everything. So the second week of school, back in August, we made it mandatory. So everyone came to a mandatory meeting. We talked about, Erin Mullins presented how you get into college and with a sports scholarship, what they look for with a GPA, behavior, grades, all those things. We provided pizza for everyone. Coaches were on board because we met with all the coaches. We got coaches on board, and hence where our study tables program began this year. Everything's a process to improve upon. Last year, we all met in the cafeteria, and, well, the year before, we met in the cafeteria. Last year, we all took everybody to the media center. That didn't work out, so then we broke back out into classrooms this year. So we're constantly communicating. We met at the beginning of the year with ETS study tables to come up with a plan for this year, and this was our plan. We communicate with parents. We do newsletters. The admin do phone calls home. If a student fails, we reach out to the parents and invite them to study tables. All admin have to do this, that we broke it up by grade level. They grab their grade level of students that fail and call their parents and invite them to study tables. We started this year in collaboration with Coach Winston, and you can click that link later. It is a signed contract that our athletes sign, and Coach Winston actually came up with that for our athletes to sign, that they will have to attend study tables, not go outside after school, and behave, their behavior and their attendance for the building. Go ahead and go to the next slide. How we progress monitor. So what do we do at interims? Again, the admin look at the interim grades. Teachers are expected to call home. Study tables like Ms. Sickcraft and Ms. Shola shared, they make the calls also to the teachers and have the students take accountability. Coaches are expected to monitor their grades also, and Ms. Early provides them each with a sheet, weekly sheet, so that they can help monitor their students' grades. Again, the communication. If I see students failing on a certain team, we send that out. I send that out to coaches. Hey, so-and-so's failing, so-and-so's failing. What do we need to do? I need them in study tables, making sure that they're there and they're coming to school. Another thing that we did this year, we did an equity thing. We were at a district BLT meeting, and I thought, what a great way for our teachers to reflect on their grading practices and to look at their not athletes and non-athletes. So each of those links right there, go ahead and click on the science one. No, that's right, yeah. Click on the science link, we'll just do one. So the teachers had to look at how many A's they get, how many D's they get, and if you slide the bar over, we broke it out by male, female, OEC, minority, to see the failure rates and to see the passing rates. And then each teacher had to go back to their TBT team and present out their reflection questions, because we also gave them reflection questions to bring back to the TBT. And then the department chair came to the BLT meeting and shared out various different reflections and what they were going to do as a department to try to improve grading. Do they need to do more interventions? Do they need to do more modifications? What they need to do to help our students? Do they need to just make phone calls home and refer them to study tables? So this was a great reflection piece that we did with our teams in the building. Another thing that we did a professional development on November 22nd. And in the afternoon, we broke it out. We ran a bell schedule. And each of the ISs and ESL teachers that they co-teach with had to go meet with their gen ed teacher, with their students, whether they were OEC or ESL, and talk about what interventions they've done in that classroom at that time and what interventions that they can put in place moving forward for that particular student. They broke it down by student, and we gave them the sheet to do that with. We also, if they had a planned period, so they wouldn't be sitting there, we offered an additional OEC training in one of the classrooms, and we offered an additional ESL training in another classroom, so that they could get more tips on how to communicate with their ESL population or their OEC population. Why is it important that we monitor them, and how do I do that? We do, again, weekly reports. We make sure all in-season athletes attend study tables. We communicate with coaches. We communicate with the athletes. If we see them in the hallways or whatever, we're constantly pulling them in. Hey, just looked at your grades. Here's what you got going on. Or great job, you brought your GPA up. So we're constantly communicating with them as an admin team and as a study tables team. Go ahead and go to the next slide. I had a slide in here on the use of the weight room, so I talked to Mr. Dudley regarding this. Our site coordinator, our coaches coordinate their usage. The site coordinator puts together a schedule for each team to lift. I can share that with you. I did not share it on this, but I would be happy to share the schedule that he put together. Is the weight room used by non-athletes? Absolutely. Our PE teachers use it if they're running a unit on weightlifting or anything to do with the how to use the equipment appropriately. And because we have Coach Reed, and Coach Reed is constantly using that weight room, looking for track players. Constantly, we won't say that out loud. But he's making sure that they know how to use the equipment. And then every team utilizes the weight room, especially in season. Coaches, again, are in charge. But the primary teams that use it were the football and the track, of course, track. So next slide. Any questions? I'm sorry, we're long-winded.
Oh, no problem. I really appreciate it. Thank you for all that information. First off, I just want to say I think this is what goes on in my mind when we talk about how to create this study table ecosystem. And how does it reach out and start doing things that, when we think about it, you're thinking, okay, GPA and academic eligibility. And it's like, no, how do we touch kids? I think, and first, maybe Dr. Lally, if we can get with maybe either Ms. Jones or something, I would think this would be great for our athletic advisory council when we have those meetings, it's all the principals are on there, to really even looking at some of the things that Principal Rissmiller talked about and saying, hey, sharing those best practices, saying, hey, this is how we do it over here. This is what's working over here for us. Maybe this might work for you. We can talk. But I think that having that staff capacity, I appreciate having that AM piece. And I know some of the other schools have tried to start that. And I think that is a big thing, is especially now when it's cold, those kids, maybe I'll go to school 45 minutes earlier and let me get in. I don't have to stand outside. And I think the other piece, when you talk about the AM study tables, we know our kids are going to be present at school. If you're there doing study tables in the morning, you're going to be present, and that helps with our attendance as well. One of the questions I did have, and maybe this is for a Dr. Lally piece, I do like how you put in there for the weight rooms, the abilities for our non-season students to be able to use that. I think that might go well with when we were talking about the conversations around having kind of those weight strength people in there that aren't those coaches. Right now their coaches can't, our football coaches can't have contact with their players. So I think that's something to put our heads around. But I think that's a wonderful thing, and it also is something, it keeps those kids engaged. And it might be a space where we then, if there is a, football weightlifting day where maybe they're practicing or doing weightlifting when our basketball teams are in the gyms. And then that opens the opportunity for them to also then be at study tables and keeping those grades up. So I appreciate that. And then also what I did want to add in is with our Sinclair program and those connections there, how have you seen, has there been a rise of our student athletes that have also been coming to the program with the additions of the things that's going on there?
Yep, so once we made a more concentrated effort, there have been increased amounts of athletes that attend. There are still a number of the students who are choosing to go with their coaches and engaging in their tutoring or their study tables directly with the coaches. But we do have a percentage of the students who are the athletes who come in with us and take advantage of the teachers that we have available and the credit recovery as well.
Yeah, I think that might be another piece to go with that outside of seasoned athletes, getting those. And I definitely want to say I truly appreciate you putting as the principal to say all our athletes are going to go. I think that really does help, and they know where they're going to go. It's no fussing and fighting about I'm going to be here and having that capacity space. And I'll say I appreciate you putting those highlights in. Definitely been noticing that. I definitely saw the girls get some dubs on the record, and that's good. And especially having a coach that also came from the Sinclair program. So you guys are cheating by having some extra capacity over there, but I really do appreciate that.
Thank you. We got a great team. I appreciate you.
Definitely. Any other questions? Mrs. Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, let me say thank you for the presentation. Mr. President had already stated something that I was going to ask. I was going to ask, is there collaboration between the administrators as it relates to study tables and athletics? I think every school that presented today had some great information that if they were able to collaborate, like Belmont, and please know I don't want to give Mr. Ketty any compliment right now, but that graphic that showed the equity piece, that's huge. Like, those are the data points I believe that Madam Vice President was talking about. And I think that if we could collaborate across the board, that if one school is doing this, then all of our schools should be doing something similar, if not the same thing. So, Mr. Keddy, hat off.
Thank you,
And then
Mr.
my
Smith.
second question is, I heard something about ETS. The resources that they're providing, the results that they're getting. My question is, and it sounds like they were doing this 2 and 3 years before we came out with this study table mandate. Why are we not utilizing ETS in most of our buildings if they have results?
The grant was written in 2011, I think was the first one, and the 6 buildings that are listed on the ETS are the ones that were written into that grant. I asked the same question if we couldn't do it across the board 4 years ago. I ask it every time I talk to Dr. Welch. So it's a grant.
Got it.
And it has the 6 in there.
And so
Okay.
we're only funded to serve 1,000 students.
Okay.
And we were just refunded. It's a 5-year grant cycle. We were refunded in 2021.
Got it.
And so we just rewrote the same 6 schools into the grant.
So is there a way we can apply for bigger grants?
Well, we've got 3 grants already at,
Okay.
one for the Northridge District, 2 for DPS, because each grant is funded for 500. So we have
Okay.
2 of them that I oversee that are for the DPS district. But we also have an Upward Bound program through Sinclair, and they serve about 150 or so
Okay.
students in all of the high schools except for Stivers.
Okay.
And so, but they're a little bit more intensive. They do Saturday programs, they do activities on campus as well. They have a stipend for participation, so that at least there's another 150 in
Right,
addition
right.
to the 1,000.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? If there are no more questions, I'm gonna say I appreciate you once again and keep up the good work and looking forward to see the results as we keep growing and keep moving forward. So
All right, thank
appreciate you.
Thank you all. Good job.
We're going to a game now. Have a good night.
Good luck. Dr. Lawley?
Next item on the agenda is just a review of a document that we're required to share with the Board of Education. There is no formal presentation. It is just something that we have to share with the board in a public meeting, so it's there for your review.
Please take note and make sure that everyone reviews the consolidated report from Nutrition Services. Next, we'll move on to your recommendations, Dr. Lawley. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Lacy, I didn't see you down there.
Can I ask, it says the date of the presentation is 12/20/22? So there's a presentation on that day?
Actually, no, it's just, you'll take a look at it at your business meeting, because this is just a review today. So it's, we have to have it on there for.
Okay, so we're gonna,
Yeah,
so
you're just
this
gonna, it's just gonna be on the business agenda again.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lacy. Dr. Lawley, your recommendations, please.
I'd like to recommend, this is for a vote. I'd like to recommend the approval of the HR agenda for this evening.
Move to accept Superintendent Recommendation A. Do we have a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions on the motion?
Question.
Mr. Sampson?
Thank you, Mr. President. Item number 20, if someone could tell me what a Director of Related Services is, and this staff member, if I'm not mistaken, is Academic Coordinator in OEC currently, correct?
Yes, she is currently an academic coordinator. She's moving to the director's position. The Director of Related Services is the director that will supervise all of the speech pathologists, the PTs, the OTs, the audiologists, and interpreters, and adaptive PE.
And who had that position before?
It was vacant.
And how long was it vacant?
Oh, it's been vacant for at least this year and last year, if not longer. It's been vacant for quite some time.
And how long has this person been with the district?
She came to us in August from California,
August of '22?
this school year, yes.
And I don't know the individual, but we're saying in 3 months, we're going to take her from OEC coordinator and put her in a director position in 3 months.
Yes, because her experience in LA, she supervised a much bigger staff. We weren't sure when she came to Ohio whether or not she could learn all the rules and regulations here in Ohio. But being a supervisor in LA, she had greater responsibilities than she had in Dayton. And once she got here, she showed that she had the potential to be a director and that the AC position was lower than her skill set.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any other questions? I do have a question on, I see one of our, I think it's a football coach, and I see with the date of it being 8/1/22 to 12/4/22. Is there, I kind of think what it might be, but just wanted for my own clarification, is that person, did that person work during the season and just finally getting those things through to be able to be boarded?
Yeah, there were actually paperwork delays, both on, in my department, but also in athletics. And so, yes, that person worked, but everything is as it should be. Paperwork's correct. And so this is just to make it so that everything's legal for you to be able to pay them.
Okay, appreciate that. And then, I'm sorry, I didn't mean let you go, Chief. With these new hirings and some things there, and I see we also had some people leaving the district, can you kind of let us know kind of where we are headed into the new year?
Of course, thank you, as always, Board, for the opportunity to talk a little bit about what's going on in the district. We are approximately down in the number of vacancies, so moving in the right direction. About 15 additional less vacancies as compared to a month ago, or actually at the business meeting a month ago. Our own staff, I will say I'm thrilled to say that our own HR staff is finally fully staffed after a very, very long time. So welcome Angie Williams and Kim Brown to the HR team. I do want to give, I'm going to grab one piece of paper. I do want to give an update as to some of the things that we're working on beyond the actual numbers, and I'll give you those things as well. But Ryan Van Loo specifically puts this together. Obviously, it's a whole HR team effort, but it's nice when I get to call out some individuals. So I want to highlight Ryan and other folks as well, but Ryan predominantly in putting together our spring college fair, kind of the docket of where everybody's going to be going, and we just started working on that this week. But at this point, we have 26 universities, and we're not close to being done, but 26 universities through a number of job fairs that we'll be attending across the state and also out of the state as well. And so I just want to say thanks to Ryan and everyone else who's been involved in making that happen, but again, just wanted to pull him out. So yeah, job fairs is kind of where we're starting to heat up for the spring. We will be doing second round building visits. You've heard me talk about HR and power hours. Those will begin as well sometime shortly after we get back from the holiday. And then our actual total number, as I said, is down. Vacancies are down about 15 from last time. Still, as you've heard the last several months, our largest number of vacancies is in the paraprofessional chunk of the organization. So if you had other specific questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Mr. Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I may go, because we're asked to vote on this today, and because number 20 again, I have a few more questions.
Sure.
What positions, what individuals does this person oversee again? I heard audiologists, interpreters.
I'll do my best, but let me know if I miss anything. Occupational therapy, physical therapy, OTA, occupational therapy assistants, physical therapy assistants, mental health technicians, school psychologists? No. Speech pathologist, thank you. Does everybody?
And how many individuals does this encompass? You said 50?
While Dr. Burton is looking for that, I do want to address and say thank you to the board for allowing us to, to vote at each review session as well as a regular meeting. For us, that is a function purely of when the meetings happen, as far as, the board's rules of when the superintendent is allowed to hire within X number of days of a board meeting. And so that all, there's, 27 steps backwards, but that all works back to when a start date can happen, and we try very hard for the sake of the treasurer and her team to start people on a Monday of a pay day, or Monday of a start of a pay week. And so if we don't do hires at both review session and business meetings, then we really only can start people once a month, and that's puts our students at a large disadvantage. So I know initially that was kind of an unusual thing, but yeah, nothing unusual about it. Are there other questions while Dr. Burton's looking for that? Yep.
Chief,
Yes, ma'am.
Will, is that okay?
Of course.
Sorry.
I noticed there's some student workers on here.
Rate of $9.30 an hour. Is that minimum wage right now?
I believe so, but I'll have
Yeah.
to double check
Yeah.
that. I don't know the answer to that. I'll have to
Mhm.
double check that.
I think we should look at that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Ahmed says it is, Ms. Witt Gagne.
Are those positions for, can you give me an example of what those positions are for?
Can you actually, if you could help me, what line?
Those students are the ones who work our radio.
Oh, yeah.
They're working the radio station. And I have contacted Montgomery County to do some Job Corps students also. And we are back and forth with each other right now to do that, what we talked about with the athletic program. So that's in process as well. So you may see some additional wording on here for us to support that program in the future. But these are students who are doing our broadcast in our radio station.
Thank you. Yes, please, sure.
Let's just move on, and then you can let us know. Oh, you have a number? Okay.
There are 20 SLPs, there are 17 OTs, 14 PTs, 3 adaptive PEs, 9 interpreters, and 1 audiologist. I'm sorry, and she also has vision. There are 3 vision staff members and 2 music therapists.
Okay, one more question if I may. I'm having a difficult time with this, and Chief Harmon, if you can help me.
Sure.
Currently, OEC has 2 executive directors.
Yes, sir.
So if
No chief.
no chief, but 2 executive directors. So we have 2 executive directors already in OEC. Could any of those individuals that serve in that capacity oversee these individuals?
I think I have to let you speak to this, I think.
So they have been, but it's been difficult for them. For example, I am overseeing the psychologists because that's a lot of work for the executive directors. So we have one that's trying to oversee all of the out-of-district cases and students, as well as half of the district. The other one is overseeing the other half of the district, as well as all the compliance that's being required from ODE. And so we needed someone who could focus on related services, and then someone who could focus on psych services and Section 504.
Last question. Because there was such, this sound like it's so complex. It had a lot of people, executive directors was handling a bunch of things. Was there, before this individual came, was there any senior OEC academic coordinator that could have been promoted to cover this need? Like, why has it been vacant for 2 years?
So not without neglecting buildings. So one of the things that we were doing is we were using an outside consultant for the SLPs. So we've had an outside consultant, and we've been using some leads in the position and giving them stipends. But it's been very challenging for those leads to do that work, as well as using an outside consultant to help manage SLPs.
Got it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Sampson. Are there any other questions?
Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate you. There are no other questions. I also want to add for the record that Mr. Lacy is in attendance, though we did hear from Mr. Lacy earlier. My apologies, sir. We were in the middle of the presentation. One last go around. I see no questions. Madam Treasurer, may we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
No?
Ms. Wigani,
Yes.
Dr. Pickett is not here. Mr. Lacy,
Yes.
4 yeses, 1 no.
Thank you. Dr. Lawley, your next recommendation?
The next recommendation for review is the DEA after July 10th. The list is there for you to see.
Are there any questions on the recommendation? See no questions. Your next recommendation, Dr. Lawley.
Next recommendation for review are the contracts. You will notice that there are contracts on here that are typical contracts, renewals, and one that I would point out is the Sinclair Community College one. This is the one that supports the career technical education programs that help students complete their associate's degrees.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Lawley. Any other questions on contracts? Mr. President. Mr. Sampson.
Dr. Lawley, with under contracts, the YMCA of Greater Dayton, the increase, can you explain that one for me, please?
The increase of $20,000 is their year 3 of the 21st Century Learning Community. So it's for the out-of-school program. So their grant money, it is Title IV, and they're part of that 21st Century Learning Center. So it's just to make sure that they're covered for the after-school programming.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Dr. Lawley, if you could, for us with the Sinclair Community College agreement, could you just kind of give us some more information on what you plan to see happen through that agreement with Sinclair?
This is a renewal of our articulation agreement between Sinclair and Dayton Public Schools. And basically, what we do is we make sure that when we have our career technical programs, and students can either get a CTAG credit, they can get college credit, or they can actually get a credential in our programming. This particular purchase order is for the tech prep payments. So students that are taking a tech prep pathway that offers courses for associate degrees, it pays for their tuition. Sinclair's a great partner with us. They haven't raised tuition on us in the whole time that I've been here for the last 6 years. So it's just to pay for those students. They may be in, for example, allied health. There may be 2 courses in there that a student can get a college credit for. We pay that through Sinclair at their rate.
Okay, and then have it today. If you could just share some of the data, I'd like to see some of the student data. You know, especially if we can get a breakdown of by school of who's taking advantage of these courses, and then how we could kind of increase that and see how we can get more students to take advantage of it. Because I think it's definitely a wonderful opportunity.
And some of the, to be clear, some of the career technical classes don't offer
Right.
the CCP because they're not part of the pathway, but there are some that do. So we have that report regularly from Sinclair, so I'll be glad to share that with the board.
Appreciate that. Any other questions? Oh. Mr. Lacy and then Ms. Reiner.
Could we have periods put on these, like on Scribble software?
Oh, for the length of the contract?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Well, I guess Sinclair for that matter, if there's a period involved with that.
Yeah, Sinclair's is a yearly, but we can put it on, the year on there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Reiner?
If I could just, Superintendent, get a little more clarification on the Stepping Stones group. What exactly is that a contract for behavioral services and support for? And then the Wasserstrom contract to procure Prodigy Ice Maker. Could I get some more information about that, please?
I'll start with the ice maker. It is an ice maker for the culinary program at Ponance, replacement for that, and it's paid for out of Perkins vocational money. So it technically is not out of any of the DPS budget. And I'll ask Dr. Burton to come forward with the Stepping Stones group and explain that.
Stepping Stones is an organization that has certified behavioral specialist analysts, and some of the students, special ed students, now have that service required in their IEP. And so we don't have anyone on staff right now who meets that criteria. So we are going to be looking at hiring someone who can deliver that service so we don't have to outsource it.
Thank you. Is it for all grades? Is it for elementary? What is it?
It's mostly for students with emotional disabilities.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Burton.
Mrs. Sampson?
Madam Vice President asked my question. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, any other questions? I see there are none. Next recommendation, Dr. Lally.
Sorry, I just closed my screen, sorry.
No problem.
Closed all my screens. My next recommendation is our contracts for a vote. And it basically is for Belmont, for Belmont Park Hospitality Corporation. This is for Stivers to host their concert on Friday. And there was a delay in getting it on the agenda, so I'm asking for the board to vote so that they can actually pay the bill.
Thank you. I move to accept Superintendent's recommendation D. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any questions on the motion? There are no questions. Madam Treasurer, may we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
5 yeses.
Thank you. And I encourage everybody to try to go check out Stivers Celebrates and try to check out all the different events that you can go to around the district. These students really put a great amount of effort and time into these things, and so they definitely love seeing you out there when they're doing their performances around the district. Dr. Lally, your next recommendation, please.
The next recommendation would be a review, if you will, privately, of a separation agreement with a person listed there, and it will be up for vote next week.
Thank you. Your next recommendation, please, Dr. Lally.
Next recommendation for a vote next week is an affiliation agreement with school nurse certificate students with The Ohio State University. You'll see the information in the document for the agency to employ Jennifer Williams as a school nurse, and acknowledge that that student is also in The Ohio State University College. They're in the program right now. So it's just an agreement between the district and between the Ohio State University to employ a, like, intern nurse, if you will.
Thank you. Are there any questions on the recommendation? If there are no more questions, does that conclude your recommendations, Dr. Lawler?
No, there's one additional one. It's a Welcome Stadium increase. If you refresh your screen, it'll be there in the bottom. We'll need to vote on a resolution to increase the project budget for Welcome Stadium from $12 million to $44 million for the addition of the field house, the extra field, all-purpose field, and the maintenance building. And in addition to that, there would be a PR on the agenda next week that would increase the amount as well. So the board will need to increase the project budget for Shook, the PO for Shook, and then also the total project budget for Welcome Stadium.
Are there any questions on that recommendation?
If I may.
Yes.
Thank you for this, Superintendent. I'm looking forward to reading the resolution. I would like to have some more information about where we are with this project. I haven't seen any updates in a little while. Could we ask Shook to give us an update on the project and how it's been going the last couple months, what they're seeing, you know, knowing what we went through with this Ludlow 2 building, knowing that things change a lot. I would like to have some more information about what's been happening in the last few months, please.
Would you like formal presentation next week from Skanska and Shook, Mr. President? Is that what we should do?
If they can do something, if
Okay.
the vice president, is that what you want?
Is that what
That
you?
would be great. Yes, I would appreciate that very much.
I'll see if they're available. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think even if we can't have, I think there's something we can put together. I think especially coming out of the team meetings that they've been having and some of those things, I think it would be good. I think we can do something next week.
And I would say to you that I attended the City Plan Board hearing along with MSA and Shook this afternoon at 4:30, and they passed the proposal for Welcome Stadium unanimously.
That's good. Are there any other questions? I think I see Mr. Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Quick question. And this is probably for you, Mr. President. I know that there was a budgeted, the 12 million, and I thought we were gonna do the field house, the maintenance building, it was gonna be in phases. Why are we trying to do it all at one time to increase from this 12 million to 44 million? And where is the funds coming from?
Well, first, I'll say that that is still the plan is to do those phases
Okay.
that we've talked about. And in fact, I think they can share that more when we come out, is that we've actually stretched, Dr. Lawley, correct me if I'm wrong, stretched out some of the work that
Yes.
has been going on. And really to look at how to do that. Also, one of the things we've talked about are some fundraising campaigns. We've been reaching out to donors and people like that that have been partners with the district. We've been doing some things like that. I think that's something else that we can share to the board. We've had those meetings and those stadium conversations. And Dr. Lawley, if there's any other pieces to add with that.
I actually, on a board update, I sent the proposal for someone to help us with that campaign. That was, I believe that was in the last board update for that proposal of how to raise the funds. $9 million of this 44.5 will also be from ESSER dollars that were approved by the Ohio Department of Education for improvements in the plumbing, HVAC, that sort of thing. So we're looking at about $24 million that needs to be fundraised to pay for the field house, which we're anticipating is about $10 million, and the new field for the discus, which is included in that as well, and then some of the other pieces.
Thank you, Mr. President.
No problem. And then to add to that, and they'll probably go over it more in a presentation. So where we are now is, if you've gone by, there's the demolition going on currently for the press box. So that's pretty much halfway gone, that demolition for that press box. So the next step would be that press box renovation, with all new construction for that press box with the elevator and the stairs for that. And then next, marking those spaces for the discus and throws field, that would be next to that. And then they're started on I can't even think of the name, the maintenance building that will be in the corner closest to UD Arena. So that has started. The piece that has not started is any construction on the field house area. So that has definitely been a phased out thing. So looking at increasing the budget to do the work, but have not spent the funds on any of that work.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. And Dr. Lally, anything else to share on that?
That concludes my report for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Treasurer.
Okay. I have an amended certificate of estimated resources. We are amending the certificate of estimated resources for 2 items. We received 2,292 deposits for Fund 009. And another one is we are transferring $50,000 from general fund to Fund 13, which is our Welcome Stadium, for the SRO's payroll. Those are the 2 items we are amending for on this one.
Okay. Any questions? Your next recommendation, Madam Treasurer?
Sure. Okay. Next one is appropriations for fiscal year 2023. We are amending the budget for these items. Okay. Number one, we have $68,000 for hoodies for the athletics high school, and 2,292 the fund deposit we received. We have to budget it in Fund 009. We added $250K for athletics for Crocks Center. We are adding $50K to Fund 13, which we transferring it for the SROs. The total amendment is $370,292.
Thank you, Madam Treasurer. Dr. Lally, if you could you kind of talk about what they'll be doing with those hoodies?
One of the things that we want to try to do is create some unity across the district with all of our high school students. So the suggestion was that we purchase a hoodie that is the same color that says Dayton Public Schools, but also has the school logo. So for example, it might say Dayton Dunbar. It might say Dayton Stiver School for the Arts, or have their logo on it. So it's to unify across the district, almost like a single campus type high school program. But it's mostly for school pride, for students to connect inside their buildings with each other, but also outside when they're at games. They see other students with those shirts on with their logos, with their school mascots on them, and just to try and unify Dayton Public Schools as one entity as opposed to separate entities.
I appreciate that, Dr. Lally. Appreciate the explanation. Mr. Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. President. In the same, so that item increases 68,000, is that what I heard?
Yes.
Okay, and that's for the band, the pep band, or is that for entire school?
All
For the
students, 9 through 12.
Repeat that again?
That would be every student 9 to 12. Then.
Every student 9 through 12. Okay, got it. And then the 250 increase athletics for Croc Center. What is that again? I think that's the
That is,
partnership. What is that for? The increase to 250?
There's several things on there. One is the partnership with Croc. We pay half, they pay half. That's for the intramural program. Another piece of that, I believe, Treasurer, please correct me if I'm wrong, is the intramural program that Coach Bailey runs internally in the district to pay for the uniforms that they have, to pay for their trophies and their awards, and to also pay some coaching. That's our internal intramural program. I believe there was $46,000 for hurdles at Welcome Stadium, and I believe the other portion of it is for support of personnel support.
Supplies and equipment.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And then the last one, Mr. President, is the SROs. I heard 50, what is that again, the 50,000 for SROs, Welcome Stadium?
The cost of security this fall was more than what was in the athletic budget, so that's to pay that cost.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Sampson. Any other questions?
President?
Mr. Lacy?
Okay, so in our appropriations, we have 5,140,000 in permanent improvements. So that does that include any Welcome Stadium?
No, it does
No.
not.
It does not.
No.
Okay, so none of that's going to be paid
No.
until after fiscal '23.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Treasurer, can you clarify? I'm looking at the $68,000 for the hoodies. Was this something that was voted on? Am I missing something? When did we vote on this?
No, you are going to vote on now. I mean, next week.
Okay, so I'm just confused. The board's request of high school hoodies. This is the first that I'm hearing about this. When the board has not, I'm just confused. I don't remember being part of any of this conversation. I don't know anything. Who requested this? Where did this request come from? When did it come? I'm just super confused here.
Okay, I got an email from superintendent saying the board's request to buy these things. So I put it in a budget for the board approval.
Okay.
So
So,
this hasn't approved yet now.
okay, so they haven't been purchased yet.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Have the sweatshirts, hoodies been purchased yet?
I don't believe they've been ordered yet, Ms. Kidd.
They have been purchased. How can they be purchased if, I'm just really confused, because this is up for a vote. This is the first time hearing about this. When did the conversations about the hoodie, $68,000 is a lot of money. I think that school spirit is important. I would never argue against that. I think the communities that we build and the relationships that we build is very important. I'm just wondering how the board's request of high school hoodies that have already been paid for is up for a vote next week, and this is the first I'm hearing of it. Can I get some explanation about this, please?
The recommendation came from the board members that serve on the athletic advisory board, and they recommended that that be done. So we followed through with that recommendation.
When did that happen? When was that recommendation made?
About 6 weeks ago, October.
October? And when was the purchase made?
I'm sorry. I would have to go back through the emails and see if I included them in an update. I know that I included all the other appropriations and changes in an update. I would have to look about the shirts.
I would like some more information about this. I don't think that we can say, first of all, that the board requested the hoodies when it was a decision done by a handful of board members, and this is the first that I'm hearing about this effort, especially if it was back in October. I think you guys can tell I'm a little bit frustrated by this. This is not how we typically do things. I would like to have some more information about this.
I'll look for the emails that came through and see if there was a full board email or if it was just emails between those that serve on the athletic advisory, and I'll forward those to all the board.
Thank you, Superintendent.
Thank you. Any other questions? If there are no other questions, Madam Treasurer, your next recommendation.
Okay, the next one is the transfer to Fund 13 from General Fund to pay that the SRO's pay.
Okay. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Dr. Lally, with the athletic transfer from, this was for fall sports?
Which athletic
So
transfer?
the $50,000?
Yeah, it was for Welcome Stadium coverage.
So do we foresee like an increase for SROs for basketball games? Will there be another increase for SRO pay for winter sports?
I believe that we think we'll be okay.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. With that, though, Dr. Lally, I do want to ask about our coverage for winter sports. Do we foresee then an increase either with our contracts or needs from the Sheriff's Department and DPD in light of some of the things that we've seen happening with people in the community at some of these events?
From my understanding, we have our normal contracts, but they are like other entities and they're short personnel. So to have someone on site all the time, they can't provide that because they're short of personnel. At least that's what we've been told. And I think if Chief Wright comes back in, we can double check that with him.
Okay, yeah, and I probably want to ask Chief Wright on that kind of question. Then also, is there a way that I know we talk about with that coverage, even if it's not a large coverage, if it's having an officer come in, or if it's not even during the whole game, kind of scheduling that to have some officers in that fourth quarter time to have people there. So I'd appreciate that. Any other questions? If not, your next recommendation, Madam Treasurer?
I have monthly financials. This is a placeholder until we meet with the Finance Committee. The next one is minutes. I don't think you will have a question on that one. Minutes for November 8th and November 15th. The next one I have is the good thing, donations. We have several donations. Thank you to the donors. We have from Ashley Howard for Welcome Stadium cash, $2.56. Code Credit Union for McKinney Vento, 2 gift cards of $50 worth $100. Compatible Club for McKinney Vento cash, $450. Dayton Rotary for McKinney Vento, coats, hats, and gloves, worth $5,182. Delta for McKinney Vento, winter hats, gloves, hats, coats, and several items worth of $3,400. Deanna Cole for Dayton Public, cash for band instrument program, $25. Hubbard Mental for Dunbar, cash for boys, basketball trips and meals, $3,250. Marnie Wefry, Dayton Public School, cash for band instrumental programs, $15. Myers for McKinney Vento, gift cards was $250. Thank you, donors. We appreciate your donations.
Thank you. Are there any questions on donations? See, there are none. Your next recommendation, Madam Treasurer.
I have purchase requisitions. There are several. Oh, we only have one. Okay. So if you have any question, we can answer on this one.
Okay, any questions on purchase requisitions? Mr. Sampson?
Thank you, Mr. President. My question is under 25,000 less. The Progressive Printers Corporation, what newsletter did we send to Dayton residents who live in DPS zip code? What was the content of that newsletter for $99.50?
That is a brand-new newsletter we're starting. It's called our Community Connection Newsletter. We plan to send it twice a year to give updates about DPS. It's going to all students or all households in Dayton zip code. So hopefully, you know, we may be able to recruit back some students we've lost to charter schools. That actually, the printing is done, the mailing just went out, and I have copies in the lobby if anyone would like to see it. We just got it today.
So is this price, is this for the one newsletter or is this for both times?
That is just for one
Okay,
printing,
okay.
yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Do you know how many households that's going to hit?
It's about 75,000.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Sampson. Any other questions?
Mr. President, if I can just say that the board, after the presentation from Shook and from MSA, there will also be a PR that's on here to increase the dollar amount, if that's okay with the board.
For
the 44 million. There'll be a PR on here next week. It's not currently on here.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions? If not,
So,
oh, go ahead, Mr. Sampson.
Mr. President, with Dr. Lawley's statement, the purchase, the PR, is that just to secure the funds, but we're still gonna go the avenue of fundraising and all that other stuff? It's not saying that we're going to spend that out of like general funds or anything like that? So we're committing to spending that money, that's the purpose of that